All right. So it looks like we're live. Let me just give it a second here. I'm sure I have to renew the or refresh my page on YouTube. Let's see what happens. And there looks like we're up and running. All right. So here we are. We're back. We are back. And we're gonna see if anybody actually watches this tonight. I'm not sure. This is like kind of last minute, like always with me. So we'll see. We'll see if people want to, hang out and chat a little bit. And we will talk a little bit about, some of the things that I like to discuss tonight on the topic, which is the inauthentic chat. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about what I mean by that as we go through the programming. Looks like there's 3 people watching. It's probably all of me. So if you guys are out there, say hello, introduce yourselves. Hopefully, it's some of the regulars that have been here in the past. But, we're going to talk a little bit about some things that I've been thinking of. The reason why I kind of coined this the inauthentic chat was because some of the things I've been looking at in YouTube and, just kind of getting reacquainted with the whole gun tuber, gun community thing. And, that's kind of been what I've been looking at, and reassessing things, looking at lots and lots of channels and trying to, I guess, assess, which of the gun channels out there that I watch or have watched in the past that I consider inauthentic or authentic kind of channels. And this is going to give you guys an opportunity, whoever shows up for the stream, to kind of, give me some comments, put some ideas out there about, what channels you think are inauthentic versus authentic. Obviously give a reason if you would like, which I think would be helpful. That way it allows us to kind of understand where you're coming from with things. So like I said, we'll give it a few minutes. Again, if nobody shows up, then it'll be just basically a podcast tonight with me. And so, we'll go from there. But it says that there's 4 people watching. So it's probably my mom, dad, grandmother, and my wife, but that's okay. So again, like I said, if you guys are in there or out there, by all means, say hello. Give me a hello and you can hear me. That'd be wonderful. But all right, so let's get started, right? Let's talk about why I'm calling this the inauthentic chat. So a couple of things I have been looking at are some of the, the bigger gun channels out there and obviously some smaller ones. I've actually taken quite a bit of a hiatus away from YouTube, whether it's, making videos or even just watching, gun videos as a whole. There really just isn't too much out there that's piquing my interest as of late. Not a ton of firearms, not a ton of just interesting things that I like. But again, it could be that, things might change sooner rather than later. I'm not really sure, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But right now, there just doesn't seem to be anything that's, kind of overwhelming the market, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, there's a slew of 2011s that are coming out, and everybody's heralding them as the best firearms ever created. It's like the very typical same old nonsense where, something new comes out and then right away that's coined as the best new thing. And I think obviously, we're all kind of responsible for that because we all sit there and say, well, it would be nice to own this or have that and all those other great stuff. But at the same time, most of us are not going to be able to actually, get that stuff. And, it takes some time, obviously. It's things that we want to, kind of, I guess, save up for and then buy. But, a lot of us, like myself, rely on YouTube for a lot of our information. And when I say a lot of my information, I'm not talking about like news and headlines and that sort of stuff, but I'm talking about like consumer information, right? Like if I want to buy something, I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to see what some of the reviews are. And I guess that's kind of where it gets a little dicey because when you're looking at reviews, the biggest problem that you find is you don't know what to believe out there. I mean, I would say the majority of the quote unquote reviews out there are actually nothing more than commercials or advertisements for the actual marketing team that has sent them the item to review. And so that's kind of a bummer because, how do you really know what's going to be, what's going to be real versus fake? And I think that's kind of the crappy part of it all. So again, it says that 5 of you are watching. So if you guys want to drop some comments, feel free to do so. That'd be great. And then we'll try to answer as many questions as we can and then go from there. But when it comes to gun channels, it's kind of a unique thing because obviously there's not a big push in YouTube for it due to the content. And, it seems like there's always every other day a new gun tuber out there. And, amazingly enough, they're growing exponentially quickly. And, it seems to be like such a flux of different types of channels, right? So you have some that kind of just do the basic bare bones tabletops, which is really what I started off doing my channel with, and still for the majority keep doing that. What's up, Pistol Pete? Let's see. YouTube taking away the thumbs down really pissed me off. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I didn't think you hated me that much, but I appreciate you being here anyway. So, but anyway, as I was saying, like when you look at some of the channels, you get the overheads, you get the action packed, almost like an action movie where, you know, they go out in the first 5 minutes of the video, they do a b-roll of the camera kind of panning over the gun and showing it turning and spinning. But then of course, they then spend the next 5 minutes showing them shoot everything and anything super fast, the mag dump after mag dump, and yet you never see what they're shooting at. You never see anything. You just see the gun getting shot at nothing. And you kind of ask yourself, like, what is the worthiness of that? If you're shooting really fast, great, that's awesome. But at the same time, if nobody ever gets to know just how accurate the firearm is, based on your controllability of it, how reliable is that? What are you really learning from it, I guess, is the best way to answer that question. So then you also get the channels now that are getting so big that they almost have become like almost movie productions, and, the cinematography, the level of the cinematography, the level of the audio has increased, just at an exponential rate, right? So you see some of them where they're really doing a great job at editing and all this other stuff, and it's a very dynamic channel. But at the same time, are they reviewing it or anything, or is it just more entertainment value? So it's like you kind of have to weed through, the tall grass versus the weeds versus the shorter grass to determine like which one of those channels is going to give you the most pertinent information for yourself without being biased, because maybe they got the item for free. I think the biggest example I'll use, and this will probably be the only name I drop, is Such. Such, and I don't know the guy. I'm sure he's a really nice man. I'm sure he's a great guy, a great family guy. And I'm not knocking his character at all in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, when you watch his channel, there are parts of his videos that I enjoy because there are basic facts that he goes over on each pistol or firearm that he's reviewing. But then it turns into kind of more of a commercial or advertisement for the product. The best example I have right now, again, because I don't really watch his channel, but I wanted to kind of collect some information, was when he just did the review on the Archon Type B Gen 2. And I've had the gun for several months. I shot it already. I actually am going to be dropping that video tomorrow. So hopefully more than 3 people will actually watch it. But the video, there was a lot of factual information, 12 millimeter slide height, the fact that internal components have been upgraded, the types of models they offer, whether it's the D model or the model with the cut and the slide, optic capabilities, so the basic information, the factual information is fine. Like I have no problem with that. But at no point in that video did he ever really talk about anything that was kind of a negative of the gun. And this is nothing new for his channel. I've never seen a review by him where he's done any kind of downside to the firearm. And while the Archon Type B Gen 2 is a great gun, and it is, I love it, it's a fantastic gun, there are some really weird, stupid things that they did with the manufacturing of the gun. Does it affect the quality? Not really. Does it affect the ability of you to shoot it? Absolutely not. But the supposed modularity that he spoke about was not true. It's not really modular. It's more like changeable, and he never really addressed that. The fact that the gun comes with technically 3 different grip sizes or grip lengths and only comes with 2 magazines is stupid, and that was never addressed. So it kind of makes you wonder and scratch your head, how many of these guys and gals out there can you actually trust? What channel is authentic, what channel is not authentic? For me in particular, one of the only big channels I watch is Honest Outlaw. And, he's, in my opinion, is as authentic as you get. I mean, I think, some people could say, well, his marketing of himself is kind of, the sunglasses and the beard, but he's been doing that for years. Like anybody who's watched his channel knows that. Just because now he's turned it into kind of like a trademark for himself, I have no issues with that at all. I have not seen him do anything, in my opinion, that would seem to be bought by anyone. And he clearly says it during his video. Again, you can believe it if you want to or not, but I've never seen him do anything that would be, in my opinion, sketchy. Do I agree with his idea about the echelon? Not really, but that's his opinion. It's my opinion. But for the most part, everything he's ever said has been very spot on in his reviews, just based on my experiences with the guns that I've shot that he kind of has. Again, I don't have all of the things he has, but there are a lot of similarities in the guns that we both have. And I've been, very agreeable to everything he said. And so he's one of the very few channels that I still believe have that level of authenticity for me that makes me want to watch that so I can get an opinion. And the opinion isn't always going to be the same, but at the same time, there's going to be some enticement to whether buy the product or not, right? And then I've been watching some other channels that are kind of coming up and really getting popular. And, I started asking myself, like, how many of these newer channels that are coming up and getting very popular are more gimmicks than anything else? And again, I don't know any of these people personally, but at the same time, there are some guys out there that are on YouTube that present themselves as whatever. It could be an operator. It could be a friggin', whatever, a marksman shooter, or it could even be like a nerd who just loves guns. But at the same time, it's like, which one of those guys is really genuine in who they are? I mean, how much of it is really just a sketch, and it's hard to kind of decipher that. And then you have channels that will sit there and say to everybody in the audience, hey, I don't chill, I don't do any of that. I'm going to always be upfront and I will never do anything on the side. But then when they call everybody else a shill, they then spend 10 minutes shilling products that they've gotten. So it's kind of like, you get caught in the middle to say to yourselves, well, how am I supposed to decide what's real and what's not? And at the end of the day, I don't have a good answer for you. I really don't. I can only sit there and say that you're going to have to kind of peel back the onion layers to see what is real, what is not, or at least use your best judgment on that. I think a lot of times, when I think the biggest defining factor, and maybe not, is a lot of channels where people buy their own stuff. I think that's obviously authentic because they've got nothing to lose. The problem is, how many of those channels really ever get big? Well, probably none of them, because they're not willing to kind of sell their image and their marketing ability to a group or a company that's then going to control what they say and do. I've had a couple of things given to me for free, firearm wise, and I've reviewed them, and I've been very honest with those reviews every time I've ever done it. And sometimes I'll tell you right now, at no time do any of those companies ever call me back. And it could be one of two things. It could be A, the reviews are just crappy, or B, I just didn't say everything was awesome about the gun. And that kind of pushes your ability to attract people away, because nobody's going to send you something that you're going to bash if it's a piece of garbage. But again, that's that's sort of where you're at in regards to everything here. So right now it looks like I got Pistol Pete in here. I've got Jimmy. I don't know what it is. Channel 1 T Wood. I hope that's right. I'm sorry, dude, if it's not. So far, there seems to be just 5 watching, so that's great. It's 5 more than I thought. But Pistol Pete is saying, let's see, I agree 100% on Such. Some good info always taken with a grain of salt. And then Jimmy is, it's Chitwood. Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy is saying they talk up certain brands in hopes of a callback. And that is true. I mean, I don't want to get on anybody's hate list or anything, but there's some channels, man, that I've been watching where, they talk about, I'm not bought by this company, but all of a sudden they start mentioning the name brand every 5 seconds in their either a live stream or whatever. And it's annoying. It's irritating. Because you can't sit there and tell me that you're unbiased or that you haven't been kind of, bought when you claim that, this product now is the best product ever made, even though, 3 days ago you wouldn't have said that. And Jimmy's saying something right. You can't blame him. And you can't, because at the end of the day, like, there are some people who get into YouTube to make money. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't have a problem with people who are trying to make money off of this. Believe me, if I had time, if I had I don't know, I guess the energy and the know-how. I'd love to make a better channel, but I just don't. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with where I'm at. Would I like to see it grow? Sure. But it takes effort, it takes time, it takes finances, it takes products, and those are the things that are hard to come by. But at the end of the day, I don't fault anybody who wants to make a name for themselves in this platform, because again, YouTube is a great platform. It really is, depending, of course, what you're doing. But at the same time, I think it's one of the most useful platforms out there because of the amount of people that use it and the amount of information that's available. Unfortunately, that's where everything gets kind of congested, because what do you believe versus what's real and what's not. Mario Mosen is saying, hello, everyone. Same goes for the ultimate reloader. Hello. And then Pistol Pete is saying, between shills and people wanting to not be critical of something, they spent their own hard-earned money on it, can be difficult, still trusting the small channels and more. You're absolutely right. Like, for example, I mean, every gun that I've ever reviewed, with the exception of, let me think about this, probably anything that was a Springfield at one point. I never bought any of those guns. They were sent to me. I reviewed them. I was very impressed with a lot of them. Some of the guns were a little weird, but I think overall they weren't too bad. But at the same time, I mean, I wasn't going to lie. I mean, I got in trouble with the XT Mod 2 review because I criticized the grip safety. They didn't like what I had to say about it. And then after that, I just got totally ghosted by them, and that's totally fine. Like, I don't care. But at the same time, even the smaller channels, like every gun I've ever shown you, I've bought myself. And, there is kind of that personal pride. Like, everybody knows I love Steyr, and it's hard sometimes to hear those criticisms about Steyr. But the reality is that even though Steyrs are a great gun, you can't find anything for them. And there's absolutely no support from the company for those pistols, which kind of sucks. What's up there, Dexter? How you doing, buddy? And, again, like I said, this is about the inauthentic channels. It's hard really to keep on watching, to be honest with you. I mean, I actually have kind of turned off YouTube for a while when it comes to guns, because I just kind of get tired of it. There are some channels that I like watching, especially for the data that they put up. And really, like, to me, that's the most important part of it, is just the kind of the data, like, is it worth it? Is it manufactured well? Is it prone to failures? Like, those types of things I actually like watching. But when it becomes a production and I've got to watch somebody with a 5-minute segment of them shooting into space super fast, like, I'm just not into that. Like, some guys are, no problem. I just don't see the usefulness of it. But that's me. That's just what I think. Let's see. Dexter saying there is also no one fit for everyone, and that is also true, right? Because, like, we like to believe that every square, whatever I'm trying to say, I don't know, every round peg fits in every round hole, but we know that's not the case. In most cases, it's going to be kind of a differentiation of tastes, right? And I think even for my own channel, what's left of it, there's been some times where I've decided to do things that I thought would be, kind of interesting, but then they turn out to not be interesting and they kind of suck. And so then I kind of move away from it. I think for the most part, like, I'm not really changing much because there just is no sense to doing that. Why reinvent something that doesn't have a lot of time, involved in it anymore? But at the same time, like I said, I'd like to try to get back into things, which I plan on doing. It's just a matter of just kind of getting back into it. I think that's for me the biggest deal. Let's see. The Glock 45X is perfect for not all. And yeah, you're right. Like, the 45X is great. Or 45, but the 19X is great. I love the 19X. It's one of my favorite guns. Which is kind of interesting because Sush made the comparison of the Gen 2 Archon as in its extended form as a 19X, and it's not a 19X. Doesn't feel like a 19X. Isn't as balanced as a 19X. Slides a little bit too long. The grip is a little bit longer, not by much, but a little bit. But again, I guess to give you an idea of it is what he was trying to go for. So I would say that's about my only channel that I'll kind of talk about, because I'm sure he's not watching this. In regards to some of the other channels, like I said, Honest Outlaw I like quite a bit. Humble Marksman, I actually like his channel. I definitely like his style of clothing. But it's he's got a good channel too, because a lot of it is factual information. And I'm hopeful that he will maintain his neutrality when it comes to reviewing things. But I think that's up to him, right? It's up to whatever he decides on that channel. Let's see. 43X is perfect for me. Everything tries to be the Glock killer and haven't seen Glock die yet. And that's true too. I know that, obviously you've gotten all these different guns, whether it's Shadow Systems now coming up with the basically a 43X clone. Then you've got Palmetto State that's also doing the same thing. I've kind of moved away from Glock. I don't own any Glocks anymore. I would say the two clones that I have are semi clones because I wouldn't say they're clones. I do still have my MR920 and I absolutely love that gun. I think it's a great gun. I think it's it's kind of gotten a little bit old in the tooth or long in the tooth, I guess, based on some of the other things that I've been seeing. And then the other gun I have an actual Bull Armory, which I'll be doing a review on that I paid for, and it's kind of the newer model of Bull Armory, the striker fired gun. So I'll get to show that at some point. And I think that gun's great. I think that gun is actually, in my opinion, better than an MR920 in certain ways. And look forward to showing you guys that. But it shoots great. It's a very good gun. But I mean, when you kind of play with those guns and you go back to a Glock, for me, I mean, there's no point. I don't see the point in getting Glocks anymore. But, again, it's just about opinion, right? Do I shoot much 22? I actually do not have a 22 pistol any longer. I actually only have a 22 rifle. That was something I actually started my kids with shooting, and I don't really shoot too much of it. I mean, I got a ton of rounds of it, and I don't even know why, but I don't really shoot it. I don't shoot as much as I really should go back to shooting it because there's things that I want to work on fundamentally for myself in regards to shooting handguns. But, I think the biggest problem I'm having right now is time. Like time for me has gotten so bad that even doing this chat has to be like figured into the day, and it sucks, but that's kind of where I've been for almost the past 2 years. Like when I look at my videos that I've uploaded, I haven't really done much, and that's kind of a bummer because I felt like at one point the channel was just starting to get a little traction. But life happens, right? You got kids and they're traveling a lot for sports and this and that, everything else. You've got to make those adjustments. I have a senior in high school now. He'll be going to college soon, so I'll open up some free time for myself. But now it's my daughter's turn, so we'll see how I can play with that. You never know. And then Dexter saying the reason people say you should have one is because the availability of parts and mags. And that is true with the Glocks, but I'd also argue the fact that if you get one of these Glock clones, as long as you can find Gen 3 parts, most of these clones have Gen 3 parts in them. So you can easily swap that stuff out. I mean, there might be some minor differences like in guide rods, stuff like that. But I think for the most part, the Gen 3 patent's all expired. So that's why, and I wonder, I can't remember if the Gen 4s did as well, but the Gen 3 patents, I think, expired in regards to the parts, and that's why people can now use them. At least that's what I think. Not an attorney, but I'm pretty sure that's why. So look, there's nothing wrong with a Glock. There's nothing. My favorite Glocks of all time were the 19X and the 45. I just think they were great guns. I love the balance of the handguns, but with the marketing of other companies and the way they're designing their grips versus a Glock and just more modern features than a Glock, it's kind of hard pressed to want to spend the money on something that just isn't up to par with some of these other firearms. Yes, the track record may not be there, but those track records are easily being brought up to the same level, in my opinion. Let's see. Hello, Doobie Antimano. How are you, sir? Or ma'am? Not sure. I think it's sir. And Dexter saying all this time, still no Glocks. Like I said, I've had a ton of Glocks. I've had 26s. I've had 43X, 48, 19, 19X, 45, 17s. I mean, I've had pretty much every 9mm Glock known to mankind. And at the end of the day, they're kind of that revolving door firearm. That's just the way it's been. And I think a lot of companies are right now, especially, are challenging Glock's dominance for whatever reason. Some people may say if it's not broken, why fix it? But I'm not saying anything's broken on a Glock. If I just want more modern features, like a better ergonomic grip, I don't want a backstrap that I have to, add to the girth of the grip. It should just be common sense, right? Maybe extend a beaver tail a little bit further. Maybe make a little more aggressive serrations. Maybe make a better trigger out of the box. Better sights, whatever it is that you like. It would be nice to have those options out there, but unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Dexter saying I've considered a 19X many times, just the cost. And yeah, the 19X is not a cheap gun, especially the newer models with the threaded barrel and the optics ready slide. But I also think there's some downsides to that. Like the 19X is great. If you're not an optic snob, you don't need to get the one with the optic plate. I also don't like the fact that with a Glock, the optics does not mount to the slide. It mounts to the mounting plate, which then mounts to the slide. And when you have other manufacturers that are making slides specifically for, in my opinion, the two most popular type of red dots, which is Holosun and Trijicon, why would you go anywhere else if you can mount it directly to the slide, getting rid of that extra point of contact that you may or may not want? Let's see. Jimmy's saying CZP10C is phenomenal. I agree. I love that gun. I have a P10C in my safe, and I got a P10S by my bedside. I know some people might say, why P10S? I don't know. That's just the one I have. Pistol Pete is saying, I've never shot a Glock here. They are good, though. I would definitely recommend it. It's been always a good experience shooting Glocks, at least in my opinion. It has never been bad. I will say that I've shot several guns probably in the last couple of months. And I would say, let me think what I've shot lately. I shot my Bull Armory. I shot the Archon, and I shot the Steyr M9A2. I got another one of those in OD Green, which is just, I love that gun. And I mean, those guns are just great. They're really good, solidly built firearms. The Archon, I'll be honest with you guys, like aside from the wonky kind of stupid grip with the lack of magazines and talon grips as you're stippling or texturing on the grip, it's a good gun. The prices have come down significantly from when they were where they were initially, but at the same time, I like the gun. But if you have an option of buying the Gen 1 with all of the upgrades internally that come with the Gen 2, which you can actually, PTR is actually selling those with, the Gen 1 looks and all of the upgrades of the Gen 2 internally. That's the one I'd actually go with. And again, the reason being is that there are some really stupid things. For example, like to not have any kind of stippling on the grip and no really any texturing. Like if you remove those talon grips, there's nothing underneath it. It is absolutely smooth plastic. That's all it is. It just blows my mind. And that's why I kind of got on initially and was talking about Such, because of course he never mentions any of that stuff. And so to me, that's not really being honest about what the gun is. Yes, it's a great gun, shoots great. It absolutely shoots great. But at the same time, there are some downsides to that firearm. And then you have to ask yourself the question of, is this firearm worth that kind of money? And, I would say maybe not. But again, that's me and that's my opinion. Let's see. Jimmy is leaving already. That was quick. I must be boring him. But I do appreciate everybody who's coming in. I see it looks like there's 14 more people now than there were 5 minutes ago. So I appreciate that. And so, that's kind of where I've been at. I've been looking at guns. I kind of started looking again, for a little while. Again, I just kind of turned away. Dexter saying the new thing, I guess, is modularity. And, is it new? I don't know if it's new per se, because it's been around. I mean, Steyr had it. The APX has had it. SIG obviously owns the market on it. But I think the way they drop the word modularity is the problem. Obviously with, for example, the Walther PDP. Oh, it's a modular handgun. No, it's not. It's not a modular handgun. You can't take a trigger control group and put in any other lower, right? So it's like, how is that modular? And it's kind of the same thing with the Archon. The Archon, the actual trigger control group does come all out. The problem is there's nothing available for it. I mean, it makes no sense. And I think also with the Steyr also has a modular trigger control group, but forget about that. You might as well just, throw it in the trash because they're never doing anything with that. I think the only gun that I've seen that kind of opened it up and competed with SIG slightly, even though they barely sold any of them, was the APX. The APX, it's a good gun. They have the what is the M1 now, and that is a modular trigger control group where you could absolutely swap out lowers. If you want a different color lower, let's say you wanted to buy a smaller lower, then all you got to do is pop out the trigger control group. Obviously you want to have the correct slide for it, but once you have that, you're good to go. And so, like, again, as we have seen many times before, you have these gun companies that come out with good ideas, or at least good competitive ideas, and at the end of the day, they never follow through with any of it. And that just seems to be the norm for, companies like Beretta, Steyr, definitely, and other guns. And it's an unfortunate reality, because it would be nice to see more competition go out there. Let's see. And Dexter saying, well, more mainstream now. And that is true. I think it is absolutely more mainstream to have a modular gun. And let's see, Dexter saying, I'm sorry, Pistol Pete said, Dan Weston made the DWX with a, I can't see that, FCU, and they will never offer a frame for sale separately. Again, I'm not sure why that is. It's kind of a bummer that more companies aren't jumping on that bandwagon. I'd like to see more, but it just, like you said, I guess it's always about the bottom line, right? How much are you going to really make from it? What's the competition out there? What are the costs of creating it? All these things that are going to play a role in it. And it's unfortunate, but that seems to be the reality for everybody nowadays. Let's see. I wonder if they realize hurt them selling wise. Dexter, would you be referring to Beretta, or what would you be referring to? Warsaw Patriot is even saying SIG. Yep. So, you got some of these modular components. I just think, from the gun buyer's perspective, if you really wanted to have a customizable firearm, you're looking at a lot of those guns that have those features. But again, SIG just owns the market on everything. Whether it's micros, whether it's full-size compact guns, they just own it. And good for them. They've done a good job with the marketing on that. If you like their guns, I'm not a big fan of the 320. Let's see. If they were to have swappable frames with control groups, could it hurt them selling wise? Probably, right? But at the same time, has it really hurt SIG? I don't think it has. I think if anything, it's helped SIG, right? Because, once you get one modular piece or component, what's to say you won't have 2 or 3 or 4? And they sell those things, the trigger control groups that they sell separately, that gives you the ability to build it from the ground up. That's kind of, I guess it depends on what kind of gun buyer you are, right? Some people care less. And then other people like the ability to kind of have that, what's the word I'm looking for? Have that, ability to do what they want. And I don't blame them for that. I think that's kind of neat and that's kind of cool. And I like having that option. I think that's a very good thing, but it's not for everybody, right? It's not going to be for everybody all the time. Let's see. Warsaw Patriot is saying, what's funny is now our military is using the SIG 320, the very same handgun that is accidental discharge in our own law enforcement. Again, there's going to be some people out there who are going to say, well, that's not true. I've had some SIGs. I've never had any shoot me in my behind, which is always a good thing, and again, I wonder if, again, what is the truth behind that? And I've seen videos where they've proven it. Then you have other videos where they try to debunk it. Again, it goes back to the idea of which one of those channels is the authentic channel, right? The one that kind of had this contracted out by SIG, which I would not consider that the most authentic channel, or the one that's actually doing it because they bought the gun and they wanted to test it. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to decide that for yourself. I guess in regards to a SIG Sauer, I think if it was a bigger problem, and I say this very carefully, if it was a bigger problem, I think you would see more of it happening. It would be more consistent out there. And yes, there have been times where these guns have discharged, right? And we can argue if it's just because it's been in a holster that is too loose, or something got in the trigger guard and pulled that trigger, or if it was user error. But at the same time, I'd also say that if it was that big of an issue, wouldn't we be seeing it more often? I don't know. For me, the biggest thing, the downside of SIG for me has always been that there's no safety on the trigger, right? So there's one less safety mechanism versus, let's say, a Glock or anything else out there like a P10C. Pistol Pete is saying he sticks with the hammer fire, double action, single action SIGs. I agree. that would be the only SIG I would actually get at this point. Although, there have been some that I've looked at and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, I'm not dropping money on a SIG. I'm just not going to do that. And then I think, obviously, like if I'm going to carry any kind of double action, single action gun, obviously I'm going to recommend CZs, although they have had some problems with their roll pins and that kind of stuff. But I will tell you, this is one gun I'm going to tell you guys, if you haven't looked at it, is I have that compact carry from Beretta, the PX4, and I love that gun. Although somebody left a comment on my channel today about the video I made of that, saying that it fails all the time because if something gets in the barrel, it'll seize it up because of the rotation, and that could be correct. But I guess stay out of the mud and stay out of the dirt and the rocks, and you should be fine. Let's see. Dexter's asking me if I'm still finding great used deals too. It's kind of funny. I haven't actually looked. I have really seriously not looked at any guns in probably, I don't know, 3 months, probably. I actually just started going on, that one website that I go to buy my stuff. And, I was kind of looking around. I was looking around to see if I could find a really good deal on something. And then every time I want to pull the trigger on something, I'm kind of like, nah, like, what do I need it for? Like, why this gun? Like, what is this gun doing differently than anything else I own? But for me, I'm looking right now for things that are a little bit more different, a little bit more beaten off the path than just like, let's say, your typical Glock or, whatever's out there. Excuse me. I mean, I'd like to get my hands on like a 2011, but God forbid anybody make 10-round magazines. That'd be great. Let's see. Warsaw is saying for striker fire handguns, I do the Israeli method, no round in the chamber, rock and lock, and then ready to when needed. And that takes special training. I would not, me personally, I wouldn't carry that way, but again, teach their own. If you feel more confident with that, then that's fine. As long as when you pull that gun, that chamber's empty and you've got to rack that slide, which, some people will argue, some of the experts will argue it takes too long. Some of the other experts will say, well, not really. If that's what, the Israeli military and police are trained to do, well, why is it good for them? Especially when they're sitting in kind of that, environment where it could go off at any time. Thoughts on the 4.25 Prodigy? I guess it depends, right? Like I've never shot one. I'm not going to lie to you and say I have. And I know that's kind of like where a lot of the channels are really going towards, back to the 2011 brand, or I should say the type of gun, the 2011s. But, I mean, look, the problem with me is I can't get anything here that's a 10-round mag capacity. And if you go and you manipulate the magazine, there's a likelihood that the magazine will not feed properly. So it makes it very difficult to find something with a 10-round capacity in the hellhole of New York when it's not really being offered. And that's kind of the bummer side of things for me. I mean, do I like it? It looks nice. I think there's better options out there, but I would, if somebody wants to give me one, great, I'll take a look at it and shoot it. But like for me, I'm enamored with a couple of other guns, like the Platypus. I really like quite a bit. I definitely like the Bull Armory lineup of what they're offering. Like very nice guns. I mean, they're just really well made and they're very nice. Steven is saying I recently purchased a P220 Legion 10mm single action only. Love it, but I just got a new P365 XL for EDC. Yeah, I mean, I would say like if I was going to go and get a SIG and a striker fired SIG, what I would wind up going for is a 365. I just don't see the necessity of a 320 anymore. And I know some people say, oh, that's crazy. But the 365 XLs with the larger grip, or let's say you have the macro grip, that gun is a full-size gun, just very streamlined. It's very slim, but it's a full-size gun. And it's got almost what I would say full-size capacity. So why not go with something like that? Something that's really easy to conceal, something easier and a little bit lighter to carry, that is going to be just as accurate as a heavier 320 compact or even maybe a full-size. But that's a good choice. That's about the only SIG I like is the 365 still. That's the only one. And of course, the 226, 229, M11, those guns. Let's see. Pistol Pete is saying that he carries strikers loaded and ready to work. I agree. That's how I carry. If it's in a good holster, you really don't have much to care about at that point. Just keep your finger off the trigger. I don't carry appendix at all. I'm still dumbfounded on how people carry appendix. I just have tried it. I find it to be extremely uncomfortable and I'm not doing it, but that's me. Yes, Dexter, I hope it does end soon for me. However, it probably won't. It would be nice to eventually get a real size magazine of 15 rounds or more. But I think I have better chances of growing hair on my head than that actually happening. Oh wow, Rabbi's here. Private security in Israel keeps a round chambered. It's a federal and state policy that requires unchambered for pistols. Very interesting. Rabbi would love to have a P220 10 millimeter if only there were a double stack version. I agree. I had a 220 in 45. That I love that gun. The gun is just great. It's just a nice shooting gun. Shoots flat, easy to shoot. The 10 mil, especially on a gun of that weight, I think would be really a nice matchup for that gun. Let's see. Warsaw is saying we complain about New York State. Try Canada. I know it's true. It's even worse for them up there. We just got to improvise and see what we can do until the Supreme Court takes action soon. Well, listen, I hope one day that we all live freely the way we'd like to. It would be nice, but I'm not sure if that's even possible up here in the Northeast. Let's see. 8+1 is hard to have, but the grip is really nice. But let's dissect that a little bit, right? So if it was like 8 rounds of 9 millimeter, maybe you could argue that, but it's 10 millimeter, right? 10 millimeter will put holes in people. So I think 8 rounds of 10 millimeter, I don't think that's too shabby, to be honest with you. Let's see. It could be a federal decision if they take it up. I think there are some split decisions right now. It is. It's got to get to the federal level. The question will be, what will the states that are not really into that idea, what tricks do they have up their sleeve to change that? And it's kind of interesting because every time federal courts have ruled in certain favor of certain things, there's always an appeal and because nothing has really come down from the Supreme Court. Again, I don't watch that other guy on YouTube who always claims that something big happened, and then when you watch the video, nothing really does. But I would say there's nothing. Like, I haven't seen anything happen here. Let's see. I think we are screwed, probably. Rabbi Pete, I have a 226 Legion, and it isn't. There is a heart over you. What is that about? Isn't that the same frame as the P220? No, the P220 is actually a little bit thinner than a P226. I thought the same as well, but I have the 220 Combat, and I have a 226. The aluminum stainless, and the 226 is thicker. It's got a thicker grip to it. So, and I think it's also like if you got the like a newer version of the 220 Legion, I think that's similar. So you might be right in that. I don't quote me on that, but I know that my 220 is much thinner than the 226. At least what I have, right? Rich is saying he loves his 365 macro. He's easy to conceal, good capacity and accurate. I agree. I think if you were going to go SIG and you were going to buy a SIG, to me, the 365 macro is a no-brainer. It fits every criteria. It's good size, easy to shoot, good recoil control, a decent trigger, not the best trigger, but a decent trigger, good sights, optic capable. To me, that's a great choice. I do. I think that's a great choice. Pistol Pete is also saying that it's slimmer. There was a change at one point, and I'm not sure when it was, but I think he might be right when it comes to the Legion grip. But I don't have a Legion, so I couldn't tell you. Let's see. Steven saying 8+1 of 10 mil is fine. I agree. Dexter saying they just had a unanimous on one from my New York that wasn't a 2A case. Rabbi saying crap, never knew that. Let's see. Rabbi Steven, I believe in accuracy by volume. Need a banana mag. Yeah, I mean, the 220, it's a good gun. I said when I had that gun on the channel, I don't even know, did I review it? I think I reviewed it. It felt a lot more similar to me to and if you guys have ever had one, like a CZ75 or even like the Shadow, it was just a thin grip. Ergonomically, it felt great. We could talk about, slide height all we want, but there's no recoil on that gun at all. It was just a really, really solid pistol. Let's see. All 220 carries 8+1. SIG does offer a 10+1 mag. Sticks out pretty far, though. That is true. Let's see. Steve, my first range trip with my 365 XL is tomorrow. Can't wait. Well, good luck to you. I hope you have a great day shooting. I got to actually get back out to the range. I don't, it's been so slow going here that I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't really have anything new to shoot, which is kind of a bummer. I got to start making some money, moolah, off of YouTube. So, by the time 6 months is over, I'll have enough to buy probably a magazine. Dennis Buckner, what are your thoughts on the Shadow System CR920P? I like them. I think they're kind of cool. Um, you know, it's hard to say, right? Like, I've watched videos where everybody loves the CR920. I've watched videos where people are like, nah, I've had this problem, that problem. I think for me personally, like, I like Shadow Systems. I like their products. If I was in the market to, let's say, buy a Glock-like gun, honestly, with the amount of options that they have, I would personally say, like, why wouldn't you go with the Shadow Systems? It does a lot of right things. I mean, I watched a video where somebody was saying that the Shadow Systems was a Glock clone. It's not a Glock clone. Yes, it has components similar to a Glock, and yes, it has a different lower, and maybe that's what you think. But the mounting system of the optic, in my opinion, is the best on the market. It is just the best. And that little bit alone, in my opinion, is worth what you're paying for that gun. And some people would disagree with that. Some people might say it's kind of stupid, but I personally think the Shadow Systems make the better gun if it was between that and a Glock. Now with the P version, right? We're talking about the compensated version. I mean, the only thing that I can say, and I've actually held one, I haven't shot it, is that, yeah, we know the comps will work. Great, no problem. But I'd also be concerned that because it's a shorter slide, I mean, is it really that effective, right? I don't know. I don't know. And the other part is, when I held the gun, it felt a little off balance. You have that the slide with the comp, which makes it a little bit longer and this really short grip. I'm not sure if that's something I don't think that's something I'd be into, to be honest with you. But again, that's just me. Um, I do like, I'm trying to think what the number was on it. I can't remember. Was it the 920X? Somebody tell me if that's what it was. The CR920X. That's the one that's sort of like a 43X. That's a gun I'm interested in. I'd like to get that one day if I could. Let's see. I'm missing some of your comments here. My bad. I'll be like every other live chat. Hey guys, if you want to throw me a super chat, I'll make you the priority. We don't do that here. I just try to make the priority what I can see and what I can keep up with. Let's see. I've been considering a SIG X10, but it's striker fired, not what I want from an expensive gun. I agree. Love my MR920 with a Radiant Afterburner ramjet and love it. Yeah, I think that fits better on something like that. It's a little better, a little bit bigger. I think it might work better with something like that than the CR920. Had an X10, but sold it to get the P220. Wow, that's cool. I mean, the X10 I'd like to own. That's pretty cool. Everything is a Glock clone. Do you have any regrets, Steven? And he's talking about selling your X10. I would have kept that X10. Those X10s are beautiful guns. I know a lot of people say the Shield Plus is great too. I agree. Shield, I mean, that's one of the guns that's kind of gone. I wouldn't say it's gone away because there's such a big following on that firearm. But I think when people talk about like micro compacts, people kind of forget about the Shield, which is kind of a shame because that gun is just great. It's a great gun. Really, probably, in my opinion, the granddaddy of all those guns is that Shield, and it's very reliable. They're just great guns. Yeah, I mean, Dennis is saying it's legal for us in New York. That is true. That is true. And then Dennis is saying it's like the 43X, and I think that's the 920X, right? Dennis, if I'm not mistaken. Steven is saying he doesn't have any regrets. 220 feels like a 9mm except for the weight, and I agree. I mean, if you guys have never shot a P220 and you're kind of looking for one, depending on what you're looking for, like 10mm or 45, but I mean, that gun felt so great shooting it. You would never suspect the gun's a 45. I'm assuming the 10mm probably was handled very well as well. But the gun that gun was great. That's a great gun. One of the best. Let's see. Warsaw saying, as far as New York State's future, I'm worried how their Glock ban and suit they are proposing is going to affect everyone and how the federal Supreme Court is going to handle this mess. New York already has a SAFE Act. It is true. They are trying to ban Glocks here, which is kind of crazy. I guess because you can put whatever that little thing is on the slide and make it an automatic. But I just think it's insane, right? Like, hey, let's ban guns, let's ban this because we want to keep everybody safe. But then, you're actually keeping everybody unsafe because nobody has the ability to protect themselves. It's mindless. But this is what we deal with here. Dennis saying CR920 is the same size Glock. Okay, all right, no problem. Gotcha. Uh, damn you, Cuomo. The Chinese auto seer, right? And that's kind of interesting too. Like when you bring that up, like the fact that there's been all these reports where they talk about the Chinese flooding inner cities and urban areas with guns. Because I mean, what are they really trying to do? I think they're trying to make it a point to not, to not have that ability to do it. And so I'm just looking over right now about the CR920X. Yes, that is the gun I'm most interested in right now. If I was looking for a striker fired, kind of a smaller gun, that would be the one I'm looking for. I just really like the MR920. So if anybody knows anybody at Shadow Systems and they want to give a guy from New York a shot at it, let me know. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, initially with this channel, when we started the chat tonight, for those of you who came in a little bit later, we were talking about the idea of what's inauthentic versus authentic YouTube gun channels. And I think the consensus from the three people that were here at the time was that, everybody, to each their own, right? Everybody's going to like something versus someone who doesn't like that. They might like this. And I totally understand that. I agree with that sentiment. The only thing I would say to you as you go through your lives and watch YouTube is take everything you see with a grain of salt, right? Anybody can invent themselves on this. Unless you know the person personally, the likelihood of you knowing anything really about them is very, very little. And that always makes me wonder, the people that I watch on YouTube, just how much of them are really true. And that's kind of the sticking point for me right now. And that's kind of why I've kind of moved away from watching any gun reviews, because I just don't find it interesting anymore, because I think most of these guys are gimmicks, to be honest with you. Let's see. Dennis says, I'd buy it if you, oh wait, he just retracted it. He said he would buy it so I can test it. All right. But then he got rid of the message. So now I want to see what the message says. But yeah, man, I love that 920X, man. That thing looks awesome. I think that's going to be a win for it. But again, will it function? That's going to be the key question to it all, which I would assume it would. But all right. So if Dennis, you buy it, yeah, let me know, man. Hit me up and I'll come and meet you and we'll go shooting, or you come meet me and we'll shoot the hell out of that thing. But I think also, that also brings me another point too, is like, when some of these people out there who are reviewing these handguns are saying you got to drop 750 to 1,000 rounds through a gun in order for it to really be test worthy or carry worthy. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. So let's say you say your magic number is 750, right? You take your gun, carry it, you go to use it, and now it's 750 rounds through it, the gun malfunctions. So what are you going to do? You're going to test it for another 750 rounds? So like, to me, the number is I guess I would say like a minimum, right? Like I think a minimum of maybe 500 rounds is appropriate. But I think when people start making these imaginary goalposts and say you have to get here in order for that gun to be effective, I think that's garbage. And it always seems to come from people who have ammunition sponsors. And again, call me crazy, but for those of us who don't have that, for us to burn through 750 rounds, that's a lot of dough and that's a lot of time. So then the likelihood of people doing that is very small. Now, is that going to eliminate the problems of the handgun? No. But again, like I said, if you have a gun with 750 rounds through it, it doesn't mean that at 751, it's not going to break down. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it's reducing the idea that it's going to happen. Or depending on how it's made, it could be increasing the idea of how that happens. So again, that's something I would definitely take with a grain of salt. You have to be the judge to decide what you think is going to be the magic number. Again, if you have to use your gun in a self-defense situation, when you pull your gun, most people will say, oh boy, I'm in trouble. But yes, you may have to discharge that firearm. But I think for someone on YouTube to try to convince the audience that you have to shoot a minimum of 750 rounds when they are getting their rounds from a sponsor, I don't buy it, man. I just don't. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. Rich is asking if I'm into revolvers at all. You know what? I'm really not. Like I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of a snob in that way. Like, how people have certain things that they just won't touch. Like I like old lever action rifles. I love them. I think they're great. I just really I'm so into lever action rifles. but revolvers I never got into, and I don't feel like there's for me a purpose for them. So I've never really, and honestly, my budget has never been this big. It's always been kind of like that big, so I have to kind of pick and choose my poison on that stuff. Let's see. Was it the gun or the ammo, though, too? Right. And that could be it also. Did you have a poor round in the gun that didn't fire the way it should, or didn't lock back slide, or caused a malfunction, whether it's, failure to feed, failure to eject? Is it because it had low powder in it? I mean, it could be a million different things. But for someone to say to you all that you have to shoot 750 rounds or your gun shouldn't be carried, I don't agree with that at all. Let's see. Fake laughing on YouTube videos when something is supposed to be funny is pretty sad. I agree, pretty sad. And then he inserts his laugh. And then what's my take on the modern lever action guns? I think it's awesome. When we're talking modern lever actions, like, the Smith obviously has theirs now, but taking, like, let's say a Marlin or a Henry and throwing on a more ergonomic front, hand grip or a stock, I'm all for it, man. Like, to me, that's the evolution of a very useful rifle. In all aspects, when you think about it, while it's not a full semi-automatic rifle, the capabilities of a lever action in close quarters, also in some distance, not tremendous distance, but some distance, and also the amount of power behind those guns, those are so usable. And I've said that for years. Like, I mean, people were telling me, why are you getting a lever action gun? Because they're awesome. And to me, they're capable on so many different levels. And that's why I love them. So I'm all for it if you can modernize it and get a good stock on there and, be able to have a lot more ergonomic feel for that gun. I'm all for that, man. I love the classics, but I love the moderns too. Warsaw is saying I'd rather have a modern bolt action rifle, might as well bring back the old British Enfield with reloadable magazines. That'd be kind of interesting. I got a buddy of mine who collects a lot of, like, surplus rifles. He's got an Enfield. He's got a legit M1, like some real beautiful combat rifles. Like, these were real combat rifles at one point. And they weigh a ton. They kick you like a damn mule, but those guns are a hell of a fun shoot for sure. Let's see. Dennis saying the new Ruger made Marlins. Yep. It's funny. I've never seen one in the wild. I have yet to see a Ruger made Marlin around me, which is crazy. But I have never seen one. Never seen one. Never held one. I'd love to be able to see how the wood matches up to the steel. Because obviously there have always been those inconsistencies with the Marlins. Sometimes you can find really good ones. Sometimes you find ones that are kind of and then sometimes you find loads of garbage. But I like Marlins. It's probably my favorite lever action. I like them better than Henry's. But I'd say, look, if you're into trying to modernize a lever action, go Marlin all the way. And they're, in my opinion, a little bit easier to work with than a Henry, because I had that Henry and that thing was a pain in the ass. So we're down to about 3 minutes. We had approximately 17 people in the chat tonight, which is awesome. I mean, I'd like to try to do more of these guys, just to kind of differentiate the channel a little bit, because of the fact that the stock of guns that I own or the stock that I'm able to bring in is actually getting less. So we'll have to figure it out. Mr. Stipper 22, late but high, from a fellow Puerto Rican. Well, hello, my friend. Good to see you. I'm glad to see you're into gun channels. That's great. That's what we want. We want more diversity when it comes to gun ownership. And that is something one day I will talk to all of you about as well. Just trying to promote that idea to get more people involved from every walk of the life, every color, every gender, everything, right? Because you can't ever have enough in regards to the numbers of people who are pro 2A. So I'm an equal opportunity person when it comes to firearms and when it comes to firearm ownership, except for criminals. That's the only thing I'd say no to. Pistol B saying, get a Ruger Mark IV, 22, 10 rounds capacity and cheaper to shoot. I agree. And those are pretty damn nice too. I do like those. Let's see. Warsaw would like to have more women in the 2A community. I would too. I think we just need to have more of everything, to be honest with you. Dennis saying, thanks for chat. Congrats, your boy going D1. Well, he and thank you for saying that. So just a quick tidbit. My son did go D1 and then decommitted. He's going D2. He felt it was a better fit for him. I agree with him. I had him make that decision, and we talked for hours about it. And he chose a D2, and I'm proud of him for doing that, because sometimes a kid can get wrapped up in that number, but at the end of the day, you also have to get wrapped up in playtime and the ability for you to grow, and also the program that's there. So I'm pretty excited about it. Pretty damn excited about it. All right, guys. So it is now 7:59. So we'll do our farewells here. I appreciate everybody for watching tonight. And I do have a video coming tomorrow morning. Again, if you like the channel, please subscribe to the channel, share the videos, tell all your friends, and like, if you have any, because I don't, but tell everybody, watch the channel. I like my channel, and I still think I have something to offer this community. And like I said, be careful with those inauthentic guys out there, because there's a lot of them. So the Armsman said, "Good evening, sir. Missed it, but I'll catch up a replay. No problem. Thank you, sir, for joining me." And then Pistol Pete, be safe, everyone. And mentally, are you still in New York? Have things gotten worse for gun owners, and would you ever relocate? Okay, so yes, I'm in New York. They've kind of stagnated in regards to the rights. They haven't taken any new ones away, and they haven't given any new ones. They're about to take away Glocks, or at least that's their attempt. And will I relocate? Yes. In 9 more years, I will relocate out of this hellhole, for sure. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everything. Watch that video tomorrow. It is the Archon Type B Gen 2. And tell me what you think about that. So I love everybody. Thanks for joining me. And that's about it. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe. And freedom is never free, guys. Have a good night. All right. I have no idea how to shut this off, so just deal with it for 2 more seconds because it's been a while. There we go. There it is. End stream. Have a great night, guys.